Hi, this is the American Gothic After Show for AFTERBUZZ TV. We'll be talking about episode 3 titled Nighthawks. Now, come on, you guys. Didn't you think that Jack was about to pull out a cat puppet? We'll be discussing all that and more coming right up.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
That's like a very slow intro turning into that. Yeah.
But it's just so creepy and it fits.
This is definitely a slower intro than we expected, but hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is the American Gothic After Panel, and there is so much to discuss this evening as always. I am Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's ZOE Said What. And sitting to my left, these two wonderful hosts are...
Hey guys, I'm Gabriel Gonzalez. You can find me on Twitter at Double G on TV.
And I'm Lacretia Lyon, and you can always find me at LACRETIALYON, since there is only one.
I like that spelling. It makes me think of like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I just saw Mary Poppins again, so it really
It's
stuck
a lot
out of
to
my
say.
head. It is a lot. So you guys, I know we had some discussion going about the puppet, so I feel like we need to start in the middle of this episode because that was just such an intense moment. So of course, we have Jack who finally goes to therapy. And
Finally.
Clearly he has needed it for, you know, the other two episodes.
That
So he
is
goes-
the line of the episode. I gotta say it. My son just got fired by his therapist.
Absolutely. So Jack goes to therapy. Incidentally, it's the same therapist who his dad Cam saw when he was younger. And the therapist pulls out a puppet, and Jack is no-go, not interested in talking to the puppet. And he decides to go and basically make his own puppet. So in the night, we hear a cat meow. We see him crawl out of bed. I was so worried. Then we see some false teeth. We know he's in Phyllis's house. And next thing we know, his therapist says, find another therapist. I was convinced, if you guys heard that, my purse just fell off of the couch in here because my purse was also so scared and so convinced that it was going to be the cat as a puppet. But you guys didn't think that.
No, I saw those dentures, and I was like, he just stole that old lady's dentures and is putting it in a puppet, because that's what he said was... This puppet's not anatomically correct, and since it was a boy, I was like, oh god, is he gonna say penis? And I'm like, he's like, no, it doesn't have teeth. I'm like, okay, that was a little more normal.
I actually thought they were gonna go somewhere else, like a neck. Like it doesn't have a neck to, you know. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. But the second, you know, it doesn't have teeth and they show the teeth, it's like, oh god, they're not actually gonna. But they did.
Well, I guess I'm happy then that he didn't take the cat's teeth. And
I don't know. That visual is gonna take a while to get out of my system.
And why do I feel such a sense of relief that it was only a woman's dentures and not the cat? I feel like
It was a little bit better.
Because it's not your teeth, that's why.
that's true.
And to me, it's just like, if it was the cat, she would have called the cops, because that's like the number one thing out of the McDonald triad that says your kid's gonna be a serial killer.
Right.
If he starts wetting the bed and setting fires, then we'll know.
Well,
This
think
is
of
true.
it. Have you realized the fact she technically can't call anybody?
Yeah.
This is true as well, possibly. Poor woman, poor Phyllis. So let's jump back to the beginning of the episode. At the very beginning is actually when we get to see this image of the painting, the Nighthawks painting. And it's considered one of the most famous American paintings. It's from 1942. And so we see Garrett watching someone in a diner. And then we get a close-up on number 57, which is the address on their house after that, which was interesting because that didn't seem to come up later for anything, although we had noticed it in one of the earlier episodes. And then we get this sort of juxtaposition of Gunther talking to Jack and telling him how to trap raccoons with something that they want. So he suggests cat food. And at the same time, Madeline, who's offering Garrett food for breakfast and keeps giving multiple options. So clearly the connection that she is also trying to trap someone. And then Phyllis, of course, shows up again. So we get that foreshadowing. And then jumping ahead, we find that Jack sticks his cousin's doll in the trap, trying to trap her. So what did you guys make of that?
Like I said, Jack's just a serial killer in training, and that's why I'm like, you know, more and more you're like, man, this is a family trait, you know, like Dexter when he met his brother, the ice truck killer.
You know,
All in the family.
I
Yeah.
just you think about if you have kids and they started doing that, that's what I thought. And, you know, at first when I think it's like, do I want kids? No, I'm not ready to handle the crying, the screaming and all that. But then I see that kind of scene and I'm like, Oh my God, if that ever happened to me, I don't know what I would do. I would spend some more time in church and ask, what did I do wrong to deserve this? Like, I don't even know. It's just so twisted, and it leaves me speechless every time.
Well, it's interesting too because in this episode we get a lot of food. They talk about feeding people a lot. We have the diner. So food is generally nurturing, and it's interesting because in this case it's not meant to be nurturing at all. In this case it's meant to trap people into doing something that you want.
Like in an almost Hannibal Lecter kind of context.
Yeah,
creepy.
Food is meant to be sort of scary in this context.
Fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yes. And we even do see them drinking some wine or champagne later at the fundraiser as well. And so then we have Brady who goes to Tessa talking about the belt. And last week I know we were discussing what's going to happen. Will that belt tear them apart? And in a way it has. He points out that they actually found green paint on the belt, so it definitely matches Cam's. And of course this was the belt that was used to strangle the very last victim of the Silver Bells killer. Tessa doesn't believe that, of course, she doesn't believe it could be her brother. Brady says he needs DNA, and Tessa says she'll try to get it. But, of course, she tries, and the whole family shuts it down and says, no way. And so then, of course, jumping ahead a bit, Brady finds out from someone at the police force that, hey, it's not illegal to take DNA from someone in your own household or your wife, and takes that care of her. So, I mean, I thought that is a recipe for divorce right there. What about you?
I actually thought that, he's coming from a good place, and I feel like Tess, understanding that her husband isn't just a cop, he's a detective, this is what he does, would have been a little more forgiving. But I understand the context and also realize they aren't sure that one of the others didn't do it. They want to believe that it wasn't, but none of them have said it can't be them. No, they're all looking, who's got the shifty eyes, things like that. Yeah. So I think that's why it became such a big issue, because she felt like you could have put my brother in prison. Right. We don't know yet. You could have put me in jail for the Silver Bells thing. We really don't know yet.
Right,
so.
Which is such a good point. You're right that not only did they want to keep out of it because why get their DNA in the police database, but they don't trust each other at this point, and we've heard that a couple times. Do you agree?
Yes, and I just find it very ironic that the good guy in the story, essentially Detective Brady's Boston Brady, it's like, what are they trying to pull here?
And for some reason that triggers my mind. I have no idea why, but I know that a couple of you have commented in the comments that we have the wrong American Gothic logo up, and we do realize that, and it should hopefully be switched by next week. So I feel like wanted to remember to say that while it jumped into my mind right there. And thank you guys also for commenting in the YouTube comments. We've had so much fun continuing the conversation, for commenting back and forth with us on Twitter. It's great to continue the show and to continue the fun week after week. So thank you. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. You can also review us on iTunes, listen and watch us there. And so...
My favorite part, always give us 5 stars.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because I love that NBA commercial so much.
So then from there, we have the family talking about the will. And basically, Madeline gets everything. And but she says, I'll give you guys what you need. And by the way, I'm going to sell the family business. And the kids seem a little bit upset about it. And then the mom also brings up in this, when Tessa brings up the DNA, that the belt that we see, that was Cam's belt, she says, was actually donated to Goodwill because it was an expensive belt, she says. Cam damaged it right away with the paint, so she gave it to Gunther to take to Goodwill, which also calls Gunther into question, who this episode, it does not end well with at all.
It didn't?
I feel like I don't know if we should give that away. So we did get a preview in last week's episode about someone hanging, and it did turn out to be Gunther, who is here and gone very quickly. But you guys, I don't suspect Gunther. I feel like he was a red herring.
Of course, he definitely was. I said it last week, You're the cat lady next door who doesn't have family looking for you. You're the gardener who we don't even know if Gunther's his real name, or is that just what they call him?
That's very suspicious of you.
Or is that just what they call him because he's so creepy?
And he kind of reminds you of Friends.
Yes, every time I hear Gunther, I know, me too. And I was like, maybe I'm the only one who's thinking of Friends with this.
I forgot all about that guy at Central Perk.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I thought, okay, you don't have family looking for you. Phyllis, she only has her cats looking for her, so you're not gonna make it on a murder mystery show if you don't have someone watching your back.
I don't know. I'm still holding out. I think Phyllis else is going to make it.
I bet the little demon seed Jack will get Phyllis. That's my thing. It's like he keeps torturing her cat, taking her teeth. What's the next step?
It is, but I don't see Jack as a killer yet. Because who killed Gunther? I don't think Jack had anything to do with that.
No. And Garrett's just way too obvious the whole time. We know to me, he's like the most obvious one to be the killer, so it's not him.
Yep, I completely agree. But Gabriel, I know, is in a different boat. He's in the Gabriel killer boat.
You know,
or the Gabriel the Garrett.
You thought it was me? No. But I just think everyone is saying it's too obvious. He's too creepy. He looks like an axe murderer. That's exactly why it's gonna be him. Because they're trying to, okay, really, you're gonna set it up. Cam, he looks kind of guilty now. He's hiding something. You know, in like a week or two, we're gonna have a good reason to think it's Tess or Alison. We already know Madeline's okay killing people. That's why I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be Garrett, because he's so damn obvious. No one suspects it.
Still holding out in the not Garrett vote. And I also have to say, I don't think it's Cam based on this episode. I think they tried to trick us, because if the therapist had heard him say that he was killing people, she would be required to report it. So I think there is something else we're going to find out there.
And I think he's afraid he did kill someone, and that's what's wrong with him. But he really just found the body, and that's part of what started his drug problem. You know,
drug haze,
traumatic.
Obviously he's guilty of something. But I just like to point out on the record, just because he didn't say he killed somebody doesn't mean he didn't. You know.
No, this is very true.
And he said he went to some dark place. Maybe he was very high. He doesn't remember what he said, and they can put. He's afraid they'll put 2 and 2 together, and it's like, oh, he was silver belts. Think about it. He had the belt. He said that stuff.
Right. Okay, I'm going on the record right now. I will be severely disappointed if it turns out that it's Cam, but he did it in a drug haze, so it's like he doesn't remember. Cop out.
Yeah, that's
a big cop out. So then, of course, we moved on to Jack putting Harper's doll in the raccoon trap, which we had talked about. Then at Alison's house, we see her husband, Tom, who we don't see that often. And he says that he's been thinking about buying the concrete company. And Alison says, oh, no, honey, you are on board for the Alison Mayer train. You can't really do anything else. And then, lo and behold, he buys the company, which we find out at the big fundraiser. And I think she's not going to be very happy.
Nope.
No, she's going to go into the waiting arms of her campaign manager, who looks just as great in a tight dress as she does.
This is true. They're an even match there.
I'm not complaining about, by the way.
Yes, the power ladies stick together. Yeah. And that may be part of his problem.
And it was really interesting how they shot that scene, too, because we saw both of them in a mirror. So we got 2 of each of them, and mirrors generally mean that there's something duplicitous going on, there's a hidden side. So I thought that was really interesting how they chose to show us. And then even after Tom left the scene, we still saw 2 Alisons. So I thought they're clearly trying to show us there's some hidden agenda, and clearly with Tom there is, because he says, I'm out of here, I bought the company.
So would you say you found a clue?
I'm glad you were able to work that in. Yes, I found a clue.
Yeah, you know, we like to have props here at AfterBuzz TV. Thank you.
We also like sound effects, so thank you.
Well, we do. I think
even better.
We established that we make our own sound effects, and we don't get them, so it's all good.
Do we get a trifecta? Where's our third sound effect? I feel like I need to look up.
Do we have it? Well, then we just did that one.
Oh, I like that one.
Okay, that was just messed
That one
up.
just made me sad. Well, Detective Cutter had a clue, too. She found out that belt that belonged to Cam was actually only sold in 5 stores. It was really expensive. And Brady calls Tess about it, says he really needs the DNA. And that's when we find out from Dana, who I guess does the DNA testing there, who says, hey, you know, nudge, nudge, you can take it from your wife, no big deal. So he does, and then we find out that they are not actually related to the DNA on the belt, that it doesn't belong to Tessa. Yes! Number 4! So, and someone pointed out that it could be that someone's adopted.
Yeah, to me, Tessa would be the most likely one to be adopted, since she doesn't seem to be as messed up as the rest of them.
Do you think that has to do with her age, though?
Maybe, but yeah, I mean, if they're going to do that, I mean, like they do on everything, oh, that's why it didn't match. Now everyone's still a suspect.
But then everyone
I agree.
except one, right? Does that put her out? So I feel like there has to be a different explanation. What do you think, Gabriel?
You know what? I agree that if anyone's gonna be adopted, it would be Tess. I feel like that's still a little too out of left field. But then I also go back to she's probably the baby of the family. We haven't established yet who's younger, her or Cam.
Right, but we were estimating, I think, that she was the youngest.
Yeah, so maybe I feel like she's being protected by several of the family members just in their own way. So Garrett, he has that way he is. Madeline probably was like, well, I don't want to mess up one daughter. Sorry about your computer. If I messed up maybe Alison, who we feel is so, as you said, duplicitous. So we don't know, but I feel like if one is going to be not officially a Hawthorne, it would be Tess.
And it's funny in the chat, they said Rockstar 11671 said they really enjoyed the Dana character tonight. And I have to agree, she was so delightfully odd. Like, that's just one letter off from DNA.
Yeah, and dang.
And I think that's why we'll have more people tested, since we'll hopefully get Dana and her oddness back.
Yeah, I know. When I first saw that, I thought it's like, are you trying to be charming toward Brady? Who I want to use this joke at least once tonight. Brady's theories this episode were very deflated. But
And I just feel like, I don't know, I'm at an impasse in my own mind because how will they explain that the DNA doesn't match? But I also don't think this early, we're only into episode 3, they're going to either say Tess isn't the killer because she's the adopted one, the DNA doesn't match, or that everyone else isn't the killer because somehow they're they all have that same DNA and it just doesn't match. So I feel like there's something else coming.
I think it goes back to maybe we didn't get another obvious suspect, quote unquote, like we did last week with Cam and then episode 1 with Garrett. So I feel like what we're looking for is a reason now to really suspect Tess or really to suspect Alison. Right now, this episode was really about a lot of the politics going on with the family. We didn't really get pushed closer to any of the characters. Cam, he didn't look more guilty to me than he did last week. Neither did Garrett, although we do know he's being very shady. So I think that's just what we were looking for in this episode, and I think that's why we're all still like, well, it could still be anybody, or it's still not this person because of the same reason it was last week.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't give us any big clues in that regard, which was very interesting.
I know, I was looking.
Maybe because you brought the problem. Maybe that jinxed it. That's the problem.
It is never the problem.
So then later, of course, we find out that Brady takes the DNA. We have Tom going to headquarters. And Tom at the headquarters says that he has an idea for fundraising and basically gets poo-pooed by Naomi and says, hey, I've got a better idea. We've got the Patriots kicker, Steven Gutowski. Gutowski, am I saying it right? Gutowski. Yeah, Stephen G.
That's what what's sad is, that people are like, y'all could say Gronkowski, but you can't say my name, and it's like only one letter off.
So basically,
that's
clearly,
why you gotta be better than a kicker, man. I'm sorry, but great job in tonight's episode.
So we see him come on. He's supposed to be, he's going to be endorsing her. They do a huge last-minute fundraiser, and then suddenly the mayor comes up and says, "Hey, basically, I've been following your brother Cam. He broke into a medical facility, was in there for 45 minutes. I'm going public with this unless you do not take this endorsement." So then Alison pulls him up to the podium too, and basically she caves and she makes sure that her brother Cam is protected. So did you think that that's what Alison was going to do, Gabriel?
You know what? Actually, no. I thought that she was going to be ready to throw her brother under the bus and we would get we would maybe find out exactly what lengths Alison is willing to go to. She showed off that brilliance that you really find formidable in like a character in a TV show's villain. So I thought, so you were able to spin that you turned a lose-lose into a win-win pretty much. So I was really looking for something that would say, I think Alison is even more guilty. But instead, she just really showed off her political chops. And I think we're seeing exactly why the race is going to become such a big part of the storyline down the stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very political. That's what she showed. Is she's obviously in the right spot. I mean, it's like, okay, she was very good at that. And I love that the mayor was played by Enrico Colantoni from Veronica Mars. And Just Shoot Me. I'm like, oh, yay, I love him. One of the only sexy bald men.
I would go with Telly Savalas for that.
Or Jason Statham.
I know, I like it. You're not going to put in your vote for sexy bald man?
You know what? I'm just gonna. While you guys talk about that, I'm gonna think more about Tess in that blue dress tonight. You know, and
That you were going to say Alison in her red dress.
you know what? I'm not big on girls being that bossy, so it's
So you're out of that. You know, and
like Zoe, you gotta cut it. No, J.K. America.
and I think also something that we missed that I think did appear in her here earlier. I know that we were, you know, keeping track of all the birds in the episode, and there weren't a lot this week, but early on there was a bird on Jack's shirt. So when we see him, I think
So
it's
fitting.
when he's what's that? Oh,
So
so fitting,
fitting.
right? So I think it's an eagle head. I'm not up on all my birds, so I'm going with eagle head, but it could have been a hawk. But you can see it on his shirt under the jacket. So there's also a lot of rain in this episode, which stood out to me when Sophie was outside smoking. And then she comes in, and this is at the therapist's office because Cam says to her basically that, oh no, I didn't realize these sessions were taped, and we need to get the tapes from when I was a kid because there's something in there. So she goes out to smoke and comes back in with the building code, which we later find out is what gives Cam the ability to go inside and take the tapes. And during that period, he's watching the tapes, and I'm calling them tapes, but I guess they're really CDs. He pulls out a CD. And the big confession, I guess, that we get out of it is that he talks about seeing a dead body. And so I'm not convinced that he killed someone with it. That I think the therapist would have had to report him. So I think that's another red herring. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he may have saw something, and I believe that that's part of his problem is that he may have been aware or saw something that he's using the drugs to self-medicate to forget, which is what most people do when they do drugs. So this is just sort of explaining his character more.
So you think he was traumatized by something and that led to it? I thought so too, and the only twist I hope they would play on that is that he didn't just see a dead body, he probably saw a Silver Bells victim positioned before the police. So that would also tie in why is he so worried about it? Because, you know, the killer always goes back to the crime scene. So I thought that might be where they're going with it. At least that's what I would hope. Because if it was just something from his past, we already know he's traumatized. He's, you know, the most serial killer looking guy besides Garrett. So there has to be something why, and I hope that they tie it more into Silver Bell's case.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that it could be that he actually saw one of the victims, which would tie it all back together, which makes sense, especially if we think that someone in the family or multiple someones were involved. So that would, I guess, take him squarely out of killer suspicion and into poor innocent victim, right?
Exactly.
So then we have the fundraiser, of course, and while Madeline and Alison are talking, we find out that a raccoon is caught in the trap. We hear it, and Gunther goes out and basically beats it with a shovel, which prompts Madeline to fire him. And because she says, and she and Alison have been talking about it as well, that he's getting weird. So do you guys think, and then of course we know already, we've talked about it, that Gunther was found dead, but do you guys think that Madeline is truly worried about Gunther, or do you think she knows something and she's just trying to throw suspicion elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she knows something and knows he's an easy target to throw suspicion at elsewhere. I mean, if anybody hung Gunther other than himself, it's more likely Madeline. But, I mean, she may have had someone else do it, but she's involved somehow. She killed Cam, so...
Mitch.
Mitch,
Yeah.
I agree. There's going to be a kind of throwaway hitman type character, I feel like. I wouldn't be surprised that it was Madeline, but someone I actually put up there is Alison. You know, hey, this weird gardener, we suddenly have this Silver Bells situation going on. I would hope that somehow becomes a factor, because then we have Alison suddenly, it's like, did you really do it? And was he easy one to throw and hide the secret?
Yeah, because to me, leaving the note, making it look like a suicide, maybe, like, you know, blaming him, you know, and throwing suspicion off them until they find more evidence, obviously, because that's a really easy out. They'd already pinpointed them to To Gunther.
Okay, you guys, how is this for a theory? It just came to me, so I don't know, I'm just spitballing. What if Gunther is Tessa's father? And then Madeline comes to him and says something and convinces him to hang himself because she says something's going to come out. Do we think? No?
I
Okay.
don't know.
I can't be sold on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was worth a shot.
I don't see Madeline going with the gardener like that. Maybe if it looked like Jesse Metcalf, it might be different. But
So, yeah, absolutely. I guess I agree with that. I was just thinking that would explain the DNA. It would explain why he hung himself, because I don't necessarily believe someone hung him. And it would explain the weird sorry note, which it sounds like none of us believe was actually written by him, like purposefully by him. So then we do go back to the diner. Garrett is there. You know, of course, we've seen that he's been waiting for someone and taking notes, and we've seen that from the very beginning. And when he goes in, he sees Molly. And, of course, it's been a long time, 14 years. And we find out later, when they continue to talk, that they had been practically engaged when Garrett just completely disappeared. And he really doesn't have an explanation. She says she deserves one, and all he says is, you know, a lot was going on. I was expected to be the golden boy. I couldn't handle it. Like, see ya. But he clearly remembers her favorite meal. He's clearly still, I think, in love with her. Didn't want to leave her, was the impression I got. She also seems still in love with him, and they go back to his house where she strangely makes herself very at home in his room, looking at things, and finds some photos in his closet. They talk about the bed. They start kissing. They start undressing, so very fast for this 14-year gap. And she finds some scars on him, and he gets really upset and won't tell her, so she leaves. What do you guys think caused the scars?
I'm guessing he was abused. And that's why I feel like Garrett will be sort of the victim of all this, you know, 'cause since he's so suspicious. But, you know, that's how they do. Because he's also very charming, and you want to like him. So you're like, oh, he's a wounded bird.
I like how you tied the bird in, too.
Yeah.
And I think I agree, but I don't think Gabriel does.
Yeah.
What's your theory?
Charming, really?
Yeah.
Is it the bad boy thing? I gotta
It's that
ask.
whole lumberjack thing.
Okay.
Maybe. I agree. He seems like, out of all of them, the one that I feel like I would trust the most. Maybe because he seems so obvious to be the killer that it doesn't seem like
And
him.
he's so sweet with Tessa.
And now with Molly.
Yeah.
But you don't think he was abused, Gabriel?
Oh, I agree on that
Oh, you do?
completely. That I agree on. I don't know. I guess he's just got a little too many eccentricities for me to be sold on that. I agree that he was probably abused. I don't know. He got more complicated this episode because my question now is, I thought, okay, this cycle of abuse had happened for a long time, and he just kind of got closer and closer to leaving as he got older. This makes it sound like whatever did happen, it happened abruptly, and it changed his life overnight, which is not what I expected out of his character at first.
Oh, right. I guess because he left suddenly and he seemed to have this long future with Molly.
Yeah.
And what we find out, too, is that it's actually Madeline who has sent Molly there. So in keeping with, from the very beginning, that theme of giving the prey what it wants, he gave, Madeline gave Garrett Molly. And clearly she realized, too, that he was still in love. Well, Garrett does go back to the diner again because Molly isn't who he was looking for. He cuts his hand with this giant, switchblade and goes to the urgent care that we had seen through the window that was right across the street. And it turns out he was looking for someone in particular, presumably a doctor who's there, a nurse. She's stitching him up. And they start talking, and he says, "You look familiar," but clearly, because he's been watching her, he knew something. And it turns out that her father was one of the victims of the Silver Bells killer. So did you guys predict that that's how she would tie in?
Yeah, I assumed that she was going to be related to a victim somehow, and that might be why he's looking into her, just to see, what she knows, or maybe try to atone for whoever in his family did this. So yeah, because he seeed very remorseful with her.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of cheating.
I know, that's why it doesn't count.
They had one clue. You could see a resemblance of the name, and then we know that this person is gonna become a major factor, and they kind of already threw out why, but I'm not going to spoil it for the fans, so they can tune in and watch us next week.
I like that segue. And also, we find before in the middle of this, we've sort of skipped around Gunther a lot. Madeline finds him in the pantry also, which was also a strange thing. And she confronts him about the raccoon. He says, you know, I didn't want it. No one should have to die in a cage anyway, she says, which seemed very cryptic to me. Like, he knows something. He doesn't want someone to go to jail and be in a cell is what I got from that. And then next thing we know, he's been axed. So... anything to discuss about that scene, or should we move on? I feel like we've bounced around Gunther a lot.
Well, two things. You keep a big construction rope like that in your pantry? Okay, okay. You know, network television. The second one, we have to talk about how she delivered that line when she fired him, like, Gunther, this is going to be your last day. But she didn't say, like, this isn't your last day at work. It's like, you're going to die today.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't take it that way at all. I can see it now that you say it, but I didn't catch it that way. Did you, Lacretia?
I didn't catch it that way either, but yeah, I do kind of, because she's just so sinister. And it's so funny because I'm used to seeing Virginia Madsen in the other role from Candyman, but it's like...
That is an interesting theory. I could see that.
I just thought that was the end for him right there. It's like,
Ominous.
even if they did throw it out, it's like he's too obvious a victim. That one is like, yeah, he's not going to make it to next week.
I was hoping he would, though. And I didn't realize that was a rope. I actually thought he had, like, an extension cord. It looked more like an extension cord to me than a rope. But
you still keep it in the pantry?
An extension cord, yeah. I could see that. I keep mine above the washing machine, so I feel like close enough.
I was like, that's the spot for bread, crackers, all that stuff.
But if you have a big pantry... It didn't stand out to me, but rope, yes, that would be very strange to me.
They had a rich people pantry.
And let's see, so where else? Oh, and then also, if we want to go back, because I think we've really talked about the fundraiser a lot, there were some birds that we saw at the fundraiser. We saw a couple times. We saw that same bird lamp from last week that has the legs at the bottom and the head at the very top, and we saw it really great when Alison is speaking. We saw like a real close-up of that bird head. And then we also saw some bird pillows again in Madeline's bedroom. So let's see, we continue back and forth with the therapist as the episode continues. We go to the fundraiser at the house, of course, and let's see, where else? I feel like we've bounced around this episode, so now that I'm looking in order, I'm like, wait a minute, we have already talked about all of this. We've talked about Garrett bringing Molly to the house. We know that Tom bought the company, the concrete company from Moscow. We do see the bird lamp during that scene as well. And the mayor shows up at the fundraiser. Yes?
I was going to say, we haven't discussed Alison and Naomi.
We have not discussed Alison and Naomi, and I think that's where we're headed next. I know.
That wasn't the reason why, but it just happens to be very convenient in this moment.
It is, and you really called it as well, because from the very first episode, you saw something between them.
They just gave each other that look, you know.
They did.
Just the sparks, and it's like, yep, this is going down. That's just how they looked at each other. I found it more interesting that the husband, we see how much more that he was seen as an accessory, not to murder, just like a personal accessory, like a handbag to Alison.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting, and I wonder if that's because Alison maybe only likes women, so that's why it was easier for her to treat Tom that way, or if that just is how she happened to look at the man and father of her kids in this case.
And she definitely does not seem to give him respect. Right, you're right. He's an accessory. That's absolutely all he is. And do you think he knew he was going to be an accessory when he married in, or do you think it's developed?
I kind of think with someone like that, and you see how far she's come, there were at least signs when they got married that she was going to be, you know, the Hillary in the relationship. Let's just say it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I took it to assume maybe rich people politics. Is it that he married her and they married each other for status? Because obviously he has to have enough money to buy that company, right? Especially if he's not letting Alison know about it. So I thought, is it that kind of arrangement? They just have that kind of deal? And so I don't know. But I really thought there would be a little more depth to their relationship. So it would be more interesting when Alison and Naomi broke it down. But there wasn't.
And we will see, I suppose, what happens because, right, where did he get all the money for this concrete company? And why is he so suddenly now, I feel like, very, like, lackadaisically just like, bye, see ya, honey, I'm done with your campaign. I feel like there was there was nothing that prompted that, really. But we shall find out. Eleanor Glass in the chat has a great, interesting theory that the plan was that each family member would kill one victim, since there were 6 killers, there were 6 people in the family, and that there were 6 Silver Bell victims. But Garrett took Tess's turn and killed a second victim and left town, promising never to return and tell anyone in exchange for Tess staying innocent. And that would also be why Garrett inferred that Tess is the only good person in their family. So that's a really interesting theory that brings the whole family in.
Eleanor, I love how creative you are.
Yeah.
That is some very... I like it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that, Eleanor, but I think it's a
agree.
really interesting theory. It's a good one.
You know, you're sitting there and thinking about it more than us. I like that one.
With us.
With us, yes.
Okay. You looked like you were going to say something, Lacretia.
Okay.
Well, I think then we have talked about this episode to death, no pun intended. I feel like that would be a sound effect moment. But, so, thank you.
No.
So, let's move on to our big prediction. So, Lacretia, what we've been...
There we go.
Now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So this is Lacretia's first week joining us, but what we've been doing is every week we've been keeping track of who we think is the killer, so we can go back at the end and see. Basically, in 13 guesses, probably we'll get it at least once. So
Something close to it.
something close. So I will make our marks here. We have a Z, a G, and an L. Who do we think?
I don't think it's one person. It's definitely more than one. I do think Madeline is way more involved because she killed her husband way too easily for that to be her first time. And just like no care in the world whatsoever. So somehow mom's involved, and I'm guessing possibly dad too, and one of the kids.
Okay, so Madeline and Mitch are both on your list. And then which kid? Pick a kid, any kid.
As I said, it's not Garrett or Tess. To me, it is either like Cam on accident or Alison.
Okay. So Cam or Alison. Okay. Gabriel, who's your pick this week?
She makes a very great point about Madeline, but what I would think is, I feel like she's also a red herring in that maybe she's just a sociopath, which would explain so much, but also, hey, you can be a sociopath without being a serial killer. She is a killer. I'm not saying she is the killer.
Okay. So you're not in the Madeline camp.
You know, I'm not sold just yet. So
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with my original prediction of Garrett.
Okay.
And, you know, it's just one of those things you just... Even if it's the Titanic, I'm there until it sinks.
You are. This is week number 3 with Garrett. I,
Yeah.
on the other hand, think I've switched for the past 2 weeks.
I'm
So-
shocked.
I know, right? I feel like I'm one of those people who's very easily like, oh, I can buy that theory. Let me jump on board until the next person presents a theory, and I'm like, yes, I can buy that theory. So this week, I feel like I'm a little bit at an impasse because, right, they didn't give us any big new clues, and I'm like, who do I pick? Who do I pick? So I might go with last week. I said Madeline last week, I think. I need to double check my master list, but I think I said Madeline. I'm going to go with her as well. And actually, I think I said Madeline and Alison last week. And you know what? I'm going with both of them again 2 weeks in a row, so I hope I'm not putting my ducks in the wrong basket or my eggs in the wrong basket, but I think that's where I'm going.
There's nothing wrong with consistent predictions.
Says you 3 weeks in a row.
Just saying.
That'll either make us really wrong or really right.
Hey, when you're right, you're gonna feel like a genius. It's like I told all of you guys, I had it the whole time.
That's right. And my 13 episodes worth of changing around.
It just won't be as satisfying.
Speak for yourself. It will be. So, you guys, one more note before we just wrap things up. I will be gone next week, so I'm so sorry. I will miss being part of the panel, but I know there will be a great discussion, and I will look forward to joining you guys the following week. So, as we wrap up, where can everyone find you guys on social media? Lacretia.
You guys can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on social media, since there is only one.
As always, you can find me on Twitter at Double G on TV.
And I'm Zoe Hewitt. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Zoe Said What. That's Zoe Said What. You can also find me on YouTube at Zoe Hewitt Hosting, where I do a weekly movie analysis show. Thanks so much for joining us, and at least 2 out of 3 of us will see you next week. Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.